At the beginning of the course, you've seen how to access a child component from template using template reference variables. But what if you want to access from child to parent? Angular recommends using the coupled strategies like bindings and services, but sometimes it just feels right that a component have direct access to another component it is related with. An example of this case is the tabs component. Looking here into my source folder, there are two components, tab and tabs, that I'm not using yet. I'll use them now to divide my timers view, adding a couple more tabs to see how it looks like. So I open app component HTML, I remove this header from here, and instead I put a tabs component, app tabs, that inside is gonna have three tabs, the app timer, app tab with title timers, then the app tab with title chrono, for example, and another app tab that is gonna have the alarm title. I'm not gonna implement the content of those two last tabs because I've only created them so you can see how this component works. First of all, as you can see, this app tab has an entry input called title. So if you go to the definition of this component in tab components TS, you can see that the tab component only have two properties, the title, that is an input of type string, and the isActive boolean. Pay attention also in this other detail. Tab component implements the tab interface. This is convenient to decouple the tab component properties from other components, and you will see now what I mean with this. Anyway, open tab.interface.ts where you can see how an interface looks like. This is a simple declaration of the properties that a tab component have. For me, a tab component have the properties isActive and title. Of course, interfaces is not something directly related with components, but a tool that TypeScript provides us in order to better decouple our code. So, how can I benefit from interfaces? Okay, if you open tabs component TS, you can see that this component have an array of tab elements. Those elements are the tab component child elements that some way I have to pass to this array. As I have not shown you how to do this yet, for now I have created some fake tabs, as you can see here in the ng-uninit method. As you can see, I'm using tab all the time instead of tab component, the child component representing a single tab. I'm using tab, its interface, everywhere. In the tab arrays, in the add tab method, the select tab method, I'm using the tab interface instead of the tab component. This is what allows me here in the ng-uninit to call the method add tab with that simple objects, like those from here that have nothing to do with the component. It's just a two properties plain object but compliant with the tab interface. I mean, it have the isActive and the title properties. So my method add tab and my array tabs don't have any problems accepting this plain object. Okay, so my tabs component have a tabs array, and what does it need them? Well, if you open the tabs component template, you can see there's a list with the title of each and every one of the tabs. This tab title you can see here. Remember that ng4 is repeating the element where it's used, in this case the li element, for every tab in the tabs array. Also, I'm binding the ng-class directive to set the active class to the element in case that the property is active of the tab is true. Finally, I'm doing also a binding to the click event, so when the element is clicked, the select tab method is called, passing the tab item of the element. Besides creating a list with all the tabs, as you can see here, we are also projecting the content we are receiving from outside into the next div. So, if we go to see the results right now, and remember that at this point we are using fake tabs instead of the tabs greeting in the template, the graphical output are just the 4 fake tabs at the top. However, those tabs created from plain objects are fully operational, so I can change tab and the selected state changes accordingly from one to the other, including of course the CSS expected changes. Okay, using the inspector over the app tabs, you can see here that there's a list of elements with the title of those fake tabs, and below there's a div with this content class, and inside them is where the real tabs are placed. In fact, those 3 tabs are the tabs I want to use. Let's go back to the code for a moment just to see the app tabs. Inside we have those 3 tab components, that is the content that is being projected inside the parent component. Well, I have to connect those tabs so the tab list matches the real content. I open tab components.ts to remove the fake tabs from ng-uninit. Of course, doing this, I'm removing any visible tabs from the results. Back to the tabs component, the parent component that will host every tab, I have this add tab method that allows me to add any tab to my array. I'm gonna use it from the children tabs so they can add to the parent by themselves. So I open tab component TS, and the mechanism Angular gives us to access parent components from the children is very simple. It's using dependency injection. So in my constructor, I only need to inject the parent tabs component so Angular can play its magic to pass me the reference. Add a public tabs of type tabs component. Of course, I need to import this class. And now I have access to the parent component. The only thing I have to do from every tab component is to add himself to the parent list. This.tabs, the parent component, the add tab method, and the reference to the own tab. Every tab will do this on init. Now, if we go to see the results, you can see that the graphical tabs matches exactly with tabs and titles I've set in the template. However, I still have to separate the content I want to show with every tab. Right now, it doesn't matter which tab is selected, I'm always seeing the same content. Like the parent tabs component, every child tab is also doing content projection with ng content. As you can see in the tab component template, there's only a div and the ng content. So what I have to do is going to the main view and just move all the timers inside the first tab. In app component, I break my first tab and I cut the timers loop as well as the add button, and I place them inside the tab timers. Also, I'm gonna add a little description on the other tabs so you can easily see how the content is changing from one tab to the other. I write here chrono not available, and here alarm not available. So back to the results again. You can see that now all the content is placed together in the main view. The timers, chrono not available, alarm not available. And changing tabs, I have the same results. And that's okay, because right now I have no logic to show only the content of the active tab. Back to the code, I can solve this on tab component HTML by adding a structural directive called ngIf that will only work when the isActive property is true. What I achieve with this is to place the content of the element inside the DOM only in case that the condition specified is true. So here I'm using the isActive property of my tab. Remember that all tabs have this property that reflects if the tab is selected or not. Back to the results again. You can see now that when timer is selected, I only see the timer components, but if I change my tab, the content changes depending on the tab selected. I've added new components during this video, and this may have done your understanding a little more difficult, so I will summarize it to make sure it's crystal clear. I add some tabs to my main view in app components HTML, this app tabs component, as well as the app tab components inside without s. App tabs, the parent, is projecting all this content, everything inside here, using ng content. And every single app tab does the same stuff, projecting its own content. The key point of the app tabs component is that it has a list with the details of all the tabs it contains in order to show their titles in the tabs bar over the content. In order to update this list, it has a method called addTab, as you can see here. To use this method, the children component needs access to their parent. That's why in tab component, I'm passing the parent provider in the constructor by dependency injection. So later, I have a reference to the parent component, and this way I can use its addTab method from any child in order to register it and make sure the title of my tab is shown.